Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this video, we need to talk about spinnerbait fishing for smallmouth bass. The spinnerbait is one of my favorite reaction baits, just favorite baits in general for fishing for big smallmouth, especially up north on natural lakes up there. You know, that it's something that's for decades has been working for anglers. And it's just one of those things that, I mean, it is as exciting, if not more exciting, than fishing a topwater bait, because you're almost fishing it right on the surface anyways. But I just did a video about this exact topic, about my favorite reaction baits for smallmouth. You can go check that out. But what I wanted to do today was kind of get into a little bit more detail on the type of spinnerbaits that I like to use for smallmouth. First off, and this isn't the right weight, I should have just grabbed one off the wall, but really in general, I'm going to be fishing a very bright spinnerbait for smallmouth bass. Smallmouth love bright, gaudy, boisterous colors. So like whitened chartreuse or just straight chartreuse, very, very key players when it comes to smallmouth bass. But my favorite spinnerbait is the sling blades from Z-Man. I've got a link below. I like to use the 1/2 ounce and 3/4 ounce because you want to move it very, very fast. So like I use a 3/4 ounce a lot for smallmouth just because of the speed that I can reel it back. Now, the only issue is that I have to modify the sling blades a little bit because although you can catch them with nice shiny nickel or gold blades, usually I'm going to be using dual willow leaf blades, and the reason why I like 2 willow leaf blades instead of a Colorado willow leaf setup is that willow leaves have the least amount of drag and the most amount of flash, and I want to be able to reel this bait in super fast below the surface without it coming up to the surface, and pulling out of the water. Okay, so that's why I like to use dual willow leaves. And I generally use smaller willow leaves, like 4.5s, maybe have a 5 on the back and a 4.5 up front, something like that, depending on the weight that I'm using. Sometimes it might be a 4 and a 4.5. But the whole idea is to be able to move this spinnerbait super, super fast. But beyond that, I like to use colored blades. So I'll show you an exact spinnerbait that I created for the St. Lawrence River a couple years ago. This is it right here. So you got the 3/4 ounce sling blades from Z-Man. Again, link will be in the description below. And you've got a white and chartreuse blade. I think this is probably a 4 and this is probably a 4.5. And that is exactly the setup that I like. Smallmouth love that color combination. They love that bright, those bright colors, man. And you can also see we've got another modification down here. So using a trailer hook to me is super important. One of the frustrating things about fishing for smallmouth with a spinnerbait is that you lose a lot, especially if you're using a heavy spinnerbait. You definitely want to use a trailer hook. Hayabusa makes a really good trailer hook that I generally use for all my spinnerbaits. I'll put that in the description as well. But for smallmouth, I do something a little bit different. I like to use a treble hook trailer. And so you can see here, this is the way I've got it set up. I actually use these rubber, they're almost like bobber stops that are used with the Hayabusa trailer hook system. I think it's the best trailer hook system on the market, the cleanest one. And so I use those, and then I also include a barrel swivel to that, and then a split ring, and then I attach a treble hook. This is a size 2 TBL 930, and that is my setup. That is how I ensure that I catch more than I lose on a spinnerbait, because smallmouth, as soon as they get hooked, they will launch like a rocket out of the water and shake a heavy spinnerbait pretty easily. So I do find that treble hook, with as much freedom of movement as it has with the split ring and also the barrel swivel, it works really, really well. So that's a modification that I highly suggest you at least give a shot. You go try if you're losing fish on a spinnerbait. But that is it right there. You know, the whole idea with a spinnerbait is not like with largemouth fishing, you're usually like a steady retrieve, pretty slow retrieve at times. With a smallmouth, you're talking about a shallow flat, maybe it has some rock on it. If it has some rock on it, that's the best scenario. If it has a little bit of grass on it, great as well. But you're going to be casting this out, fan casting, and reeling it back as fast as you can below the surface, and that's when they're going to come up and hit it, and hopefully get that little treble hook customization that I make there. But anyways, guys, that is the setup. That is the exact spinnerbait that I create for my smallmouth fishing. You know, there's some companies that make you know, a bait out of the package with these colored blades, and that's great. But this is my favorite spinnerbait. I love throwing the sling blades. I have a lot of faith in that 17/7 stainless steel wire that they put on there. It runs really true, and overall, I just think it's a superior spinnerbait to a lot of them, and I have confidence in it. So I just make the modification to it to make it the perfect smallmouth spinnerbait. So, anyways, guys, let me know what you think about my spinnerbait for smallmouth fishing. Do you use something a little bit different? I want to hear about it in the description below. Other than that, I'm going to see you guys out on the water. Make sure you trust the process.